we're reprising something that we did a few months ago. We've asked 6 wonderful writers. 3 of them have been to the Rotunda stage a few times. I didn't want to call them the veterans because they might get offended. And 3 of them are coming to the stage for the very first time. I love the notion of our people kind of coming back and overlaying that and getting to know our audience. I also love the fact that we keep introducing new writers. Of course, the title My Enduring Love Affair with Writing was something that I got a little bit of stick for because it sounded like the kind of sentimentality that a short little Italian named Bruno would come up with. But I must confess that if I get a crazy title in my head, something often develops out of it. And of course tonight we've got 6 wonderful writers and they're all going to wave and stand as I call their names out in no particular order. Helen Garner. James Button. Now this is the heartbreaking stuff. Michael McGirr can't be here tonight and he sincerely loves the Rotunda crowd and he was profusely apologetic, so I tried to find a portly man of kind of his age and with the kind of gravitas that Michael McGirr has, and I couldn't find anyone, so I went for something beautiful and tall and charismatic. Ailsa Piper is going to read Michael McGirr's piece. Could you please welcome Ailsa Piper? And she was in the first My Enduring Love Affair, so I think the love is perpetuating itself. Of course, Michelle Fink, who is part of the professional writing and editing team, she's in the audience too. First time to Rotunda. Roger Averill, who's part of the Liberal Arts Department. And last but not least, Ashley Marks, our graduating student, possibly one of the youngest members of our Rotunda group. Ashley Marks. I feel like that guy who winds people up at the footy a bit and kind of trying to get a bit of hysteria going. We don't actually need to get hysterical because the quality of the performance speaks for itself. Without further ado, could I please welcome to the stage the beautiful woman who's going to pretend to be Michael McGirr. Writer, director, actor, has converted plays into other big plays. She walked 1,300 kilometres from the bottom of Spain to the top of Spain. I think she walked across the top of Spain as well. Get yourself a copy of Singing Across Spain. She's come out to Rupertswood, where I lead a whole other life as well, and she's taught the class there. She came to our 40th Rotunda with Bryceson, the irrepressible Ailsa Piper.
Michael McGirr. Writing has taught me humility, and I have loved this, although sometimes it has been a painful kind of love. I am proud of my humility. Last year, a colleague arrived at work brandishing a copy of one of my books that he found on the hard rubbish collection in his street. I had seldom seen him so happy, and I wanted to think that his joy was the result of having found something so precious going so cheap. Indeed, the book was called Things You Get for Free, so who was I to complain? Or maybe his happiness was caused by the realisation that he was a superior person to his neighbours, people so foolish that they imagined they could live without such a fine book. More likely, he just enjoyed seeing me rock for a moment on the pedestal from which I am prone to pontificate. Humility is as vital to a writer as ink or toner, or for a few sturdy holdouts, their typewriter ribbon. Once upon a time, I was seated in a pleasant cafe with a woman who had generously just agreed to become my wife. Someone on the next table was reading an article of mine which had appeared in the paper that very day. It was either a light-hearted piece about God or something serious about ice cream, I can't recall which. I was on the point of digging Jenny in the ribs to bring my fame to her attention, ready to explain that this person could only read my words, whereas Jenny would have the live, interactive version with her for the rest of her days. At that point, the stranger tore out the page that carried my deathless prose and used it to soak up the coffee that a careless waiter had slopped into his saucer. He then screwed me up, a sodden mess, and tossed me in the bin. Jenny reassured me that there were many other copies of the paper in circulation and other readers would be putting me to more dignified purpose, such as to start a cosy fire. Given the choice between producing hard rubbish and soft rubbish, I would prefer hard. But I would rather write things that came from hard places and found their way to soft landings. I would rather be foolish about God than serious about ice cream. Writers can learn a lot by finding their books in op shops. The Salvos in North Melbourne have a special shelf called the Dan Brown Graveyard, which deals with the many copies of the Da Vinci Code that get donated. Most op shops in Australia have half a dozen copies, sometimes more. The Da Vinci Code is the fondue set of our time. And Dan Brown is the new beige. It's no shame, therefore, to find a single copy of one's own book amongst such a crowd. That is, until one realises that Dan Brown is available in such abundance because he sold so many in the first place. I saw a copy of my book, Bypass, a story about riding a push bike from Sydney to Melbourne for $2.99 in Sabres. I thought this was pretty good, and my shares were holding up better than billabongs. But then I noticed that Lance Armstrong, another famous cyclist, had his book about a bike, actually titled It's Not About a Bike, beside me. He was going for $3.99. I was enraged. My book had been written without the aid of drugs. That is because writing is a drug all of its own. It should carry warnings. Writing creates exhilarating highs, obsessive lows, and anxious in-betweens. Anyway, I thought I was worth more than 75% of Armstrong. I am the 7-time winner of Yarraville's Tour de Francis Street, an event I organise at an undisclosed time each year to prevent other entrants turning up. For the past few years, Bypass, the story of a road, has been a text on the VCE English list. This has been wonderful. It has brought me the thing that most writers crave, namely young readers, and also paid for a new fence at the front of our house. I thought we'd need this to keep the crowds of admiring fans at a safe distance. The palings are falling off the fence, and the fans are yet to arrive. But each year, shortly before the VCE exams, I tend to get a lot of emails along the lines of, what are the 3 main themes of your book? And what are the private things about yourself that are too intimate to reveal in writing? I usually send a reply on the day after the big exam, asking if they would still like a response. They never do. One time I wandered into a store in the city which specialises in VCE resources and found a set of notes someone had compiled about Bypass. Oh, Bypass, the shopkeeper said to the shutter. I believe Bypass is a really weird book. I think young people should be reading decent stuff, not that kind of thing. This is why I write. I like to annoy that kind of person. My ego is also flattered by the thought of VCE students sitting in sepulchral silence as they grapple with exam questions such as, to what extent is McGirr an explorer? Or, do you agree that it is McGirr's enthusiasm and humour that make this story so interesting? Or, how is McGirr's own character revealed in Bypass? I'm not sure I can answer those questions myself. The advice is often given to aspiring writers that they should write about what they know. I go along with this to a limited extent. I think we should write at the very edge of what we know, pushing from the familiar into the unfamiliar, stumbling into areas where we are unsure if we will find words for what needs to be said. The main thing we need in our pencil case is honesty, the blood brother of humility. I am passionate about words that don't come easy, the ones that build real bridges between human beings rather than bury them under cliches and slogans and messages of 140 characters. I love finding a shape for things that are shapeless or misshapen. I love the writer's faithful marriage to reality. Reality is the opposite of ego. Some years ago, a woman wrote to me to say that she had read one of my books to her father as he was dying, and that it had brought him peace and surrender and a few laughs in his final days. She was grateful, so was I. That's why I love writing. I love the unexpected places an enduring relationship can take you. Michael McGirr.